Hey everybody, welcome to Bible 365 with Kathy Carter. I'm your host. And Bible 365 means that we are going through the Bible in 365 days. I am going through historically from beginning to end. I'm reading every page in the Bible and I'm sharing with you my thoughts, some testimonies, some soapboxes, right? Certain areas where I feel really passionate. And I am using the chronological Bible reading plan from oneyearbibleonline.com. So you would go on this site and you would find a chronological reading plan, download that reading plan, and then you would read it as a free reading plan. And so you will share every day in the reading, and then you will come here, hopefully, prayerfully, and share some of what listen to some of the thoughts that I share with you. Hopefully I can help make more sense of the reading. If you are struggling a little bit of it, hopefully I can encourage you in your reading to kind of keep doing what you're doing, keep on your path, and get closer connected to the Lord. So today is day 165. And the date is June 13th on the calendar. So we're going through 1 Kings 22:10 to 53, and then 2 Chronicles 18:9 to 20:30. So that's where we are today. And before I take one step further, I don't know if you guys look at my background at all. You may or you may not. But I just got a hammock. And I am so excited about my hammock. I haven't even spent any time in it yet today, but I'm super excited about it. And what I'm trying to really do is I'm trying to be able to film from it, like I'm trying to record from it. I have no idea how I'm going to have a selfie stick and kind of have my Bible on me at the same time. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do it. But if you see a weird angle, you're going to know that it is from my new hammock. And I'm planning on spending any and every possible moment in that hammock, if at all possible. At least I'll be reading in that hammock, maybe not recording. But so if you can just look and see, that's my new summer addition to my house. Okay. So all that being said, a little bit of background about where we are. So we are in the kingdom of Israel and Judah. So if you guys remember that the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Israel has split into two pieces, and one piece is northern and southern kingdom. Northern kingdom is the 10 tribes. So like Issachar and Naphtali and Gad and right, so there's these 10 tribes. I can't remember all of them offhand, but these 10 tribes up here. The southern tribe is Judah, Benjamin, and then the tribe of the Levites. So Manasseh and Ephraim are both up here too. The tribe of the Levites are down here. It's not really a tribe; it's all the priests and everything, and they are down there with the sons of David. And so that line, Judah, is all of the sons of David. The kings that we are currently with are Ahab, who is a terrible king. He is a king that is not after God's heart. He's a king that's he's got evil and wicked ways. And then Jehoshaphat is the good king, the son of Asa, and he is in general following the Lord. He's taken down all the Asherims and all these kinds of things. Right now they are together. So what happened yesterday is that for whatever reason, Ahab felt like he has to go against Ramoth Gilead, and he needs to get his land back. So he feels like my land was taken and I need to go get this land. He asks Jehoshaphat if he will join him in this. And Jehoshaphat's like, you are my brother, my people are your people. Let's ask the Lord. Last we left off, we kind of got a basic overview that they went and asked the prophets that were up in Israel, and they were all like, yeah, sounds great, go to war. And then Jehoshaphat was like, don't you have a prophet of the Lord? And so he said, I do, but he hates me. And so I don't really want to bring him in because he hates me. And that's where we have left off. So today we are moving on, and we're going to actually meet Micaiah, who is the prophet of the Lord that lives in the land of Israel. And we're going to hear what he has to say. Okay, so we are June 13th. Here we go. It says, dressed in their royal robes, this is verse 10, dressed in their royal robes, the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, were sitting on their thrones at the threshing floor by the entrance of the gate of Samaria. So they're kind of waiting out at the gate of Samaria. While they're there, all those prophets, remember there was like 400 prophets, all those prophets were prophesying in front of them. And like their prophecies are like, you're going to do great. You're going to win this war. The world is for you, right? Like all of these like super positive things. Even to the point where somebody brings a set of like horns that they made, and they're like, you're going to gore them with these horns and you're going to win, right? Like, so like, I kind of am like thinking like pomp and circumstance, right? Like they're doing all this stuff, and And I just want to tell you, like, I was at church today and we also do a lot of pomp and circumstance. So I don't want to like make it out like it's just these other gods that are pomp and circumstance. And we were doing a lot of that, and it was emotional and it was exciting, right? So we're like lifting up the Lord. So I say that because I know that this is not for God, right? This is for something else. And so they're doing all of this, and then the messenger comes and brings in Micaiah, and he says to Micaiah, who again is the prophet of the Lord, he says, listen, everyone has said that this is for that this is a great war. You better come in and agree with them, and you better have a really good prophecy. And Micaiah is like, it says, speak favorably. And Micaiah is like, as surely as the Lord lives, I can only tell him what the Lord tells me. Like, I'm not going to lie or make anything up. I'm just going to do what the Lord tells me. So when he arrives, the king says, Ahab says, Micaiah, shall we go to war against Ramoth Gilead or not? And he says, attack and be victorious, for the Lord will give it into the king's hand. I would have thought, like, okay, but the king seems to recognize something is not right. So we don't know what that is. It could be his tone of voice. It could be the way in which he prophesied. It could be, right, like it could have been, he could have been rolling his eyes. We don't know any of that information. All we know is that Ahab recognizes he's lying. And he follows up and he says, how many times must I make you swear to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord? So then Micaiah follows up with the real prophecy. He says, I saw Israel scattered on the hills like sheep without a shepherd. So that's basic, right? They're out there running and roaming, and there's nobody to lead them. There's no king. These people have no master. Let each one go home in peace. So to me, that's a recognition that like the leader's probably going to die. The king of Israel says to Jehoshaphat, like, didn't I tell you he is always against me? Like, he's always against me. And it's, again, I want to say it's funny, but like, these are the things that keep running through my head. Like, right? Like, if somebody comes to you and you're like super excited to do something, you think to yourself, like, this is it. Like, this is my idea. And we're going to go in and like with a bang, and we're going to win everything, and everything's going to be great, and everything's going to be amazing. And then it's right. So this is your idea. I'm going to like, even thinking about like whatever you do for your job, like this was my idea, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to make the best of it. And I'm going to get a raise and a promotion, and everything's going to be really exciting. And then somebody comes up to you and they say, you're going to lose everything, right? You do this. This is it. This is the end. That would be a hard pill to swallow, but I think it should be something that makes us pause, right? Like something that makes us go, ooh, maybe I should, I don't know. Maybe it's just our nature is such that we're so zealous for certain things that we think are good that we forget to listen, right? And then here I go, going back to all of these proverbs that we were listening to, right? Like Proverbs saying, sit back, be silent, be patient, self-control, right? Like all of these things that say that we need to do that. And I think it's because we don't, right? I don't think we need to be told all of these things that we already do. It's clearly because we don't do these things. And so we need to. And so I'm thinking in this case with Ahab, he just does what he wants anyway. I think it's more kind of disappointing that Jehoshaphat follows him. But okay, so Micaiah says, they're going to be sheep without a shepherd. And then he says, uh, he now sees this vision. So he sees this vision where he is in the heavens with the Lord, and right. So it's not just with the Lord; it's with the Lord and the multitudes of heaven standing around him. So possibly the heavenly host, possibly angels, right? Not necessarily sure. It just says, everyone up in heaven. And he says the multitudes of heaven. And then the Lord says, who will entice Ahab into attacking Ramoth Gilead and going to his death there? A spirit comes forward, says, I will. And then the Lord says, done. It's going to work. And I want to hit on this because I think this is really important, because being in circles for so long, we repeat a lot of things, right? Like we come to certain conclusions, or we find ourselves in certain positions and we hear someone say something and it kind of makes us feel really good about certain things. And one of the things that we hear is that the Lord won't tempt you. The Lord will never tempt you. Now I'm going to tell you that he doesn't use the word tempting here, but he uses the word enticing. And I'm going to like, are they that different? Right? Like, is it that different of a word? Maybe the idea is that temptations are dying for you to fail. I don't necessarily know. What I do know is that he entices him with this war, and he entices him by having all of his prophets tell him it's the right thing to do. He gives him an out because there's another prophet that comes in and says it's the wrong thing to do. So all of his prophets, right? Everyone that he surrounds himself, he handpicked these people, surrounds himself with these prophets who all tell him exactly what he wants to hear. And then this prophet of God comes in and says, no, 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 that's not the case. This is not going to go well. They're going to be like a sheep without a shepherd. You're going to die. P.S. You're going to die, dude. Right? And he doesn't listen. And so is this God doing an evil? How can we fit this into the God that we know? I'm gonna put this out there because and the reason I'm making a big deal out of it is because in some ways it's slightly disturbing, right? Like, is God enticing me on a regular basis? Like, when I hear somebody say certain things, do I constantly need to be like, are they lying or aren't they lying? Are they right? Like, do what does my nature need to be like when I'm in circumstances, right? When I feel like I want to do something, I always bring up this podcast because it's really easy. Like, when I felt like the Lord called me to do this podcast, is it God enticing me to try and get famous, right? And then like fall into a trap of pride and right, all of these things. I don't know for sure. And so these are the things that I sort of have to question myself. So I want to go back to who God is and who Ahab is, right? So in this situation, what I genuinely believe about Ahab and what we've been told so far is Ahab is not following the Lord. Ahab is doing evil in the sight of the Lord. He has turned deliberately to God, to other gods, to Baals, right? He is worshiping them. He is having his people worship them, even though they know who God is. He's having all of his people worship God. He's building temples and all these things, right? And they're all worshiping God. Prophets who all worship the Baals instead of worshiping the Lord, which is who he's supposed to be worshiping. On top of that, the Lord came and saved him twice. And the Lord both times sent a man of God to say to Ahab, this is the Lord. Know who this is that is saving and protecting you. Did Ahab turn towards God? And I'm going to argue that he didn't, right? We see one area in which he's like meek, and then the Lord is like, okay, I'm not going to kill him right now, right? But other than that, we still see him. He goes home and he tattles to his wife who is with other gods. He still hates Elijah, who was the one who was saying, turn back from your ways. So I'm going to argue that Ahab is not following the Lord. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Lord is just and the Lord is patient and merciful. And in saying these two things, and I think these two things show in here, he is merciful because even though Ahab is not following him, he has not destroyed him yet, right? He didn't destroy him in that war. Right after he had that war, he didn't let anybody overtake him, right? Because he wanted everyone to know that the Lord was who the Lord was, right? So he didn't let the kingdom of Israel be overtaken, right? Yet, so he is merciful. He is showing patience even when Ahab is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. The second Ahab shows a little bit of humility, God says, okay, all right, I'm gonna give you a little bit of extra time, right? So he is merciful, but it's now at the point where he is just. Ahab is not following. He chooses to go out. He chooses to fall into this enticement instead. And then there is a punishment. Again, he was enticed, but he was also given the word of the Lord. So I really think that God's being very fair in this situation, and Ahab is making his own choices. Okay, before it gets too dark, I'm trying to finish this up. All right, so it says you will succeed in enticing him, and they do. So Micaiah then says, if you return safely, the Lord has not spoken through me. So mark my words, all you people. And so again, I find like it's kind of disappointing that Jehoshaphat goes out and follows him, but he does. So here's what we're going to see. So the next thing goes, the Second Chronicles does the same thing. But so if we move into 1 Kings 22:29, in that first verse, it says, so the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. So they're going to go and fight them. The king of Israel says to Jehoshaphat, so Ahab says, hey, listen, you dress up in the royal robes, and I'm going to go and I'm going to be like in camouflage. Again, why Jehoshaphat would agree to this, but he's like, okay. And so he goes and he dresses up in his royal robes. Ahab dresses in like normal, whatever the guys go out to battle in. He dresses in those normal clothes and he kind of goes out with everybody else. And then the army is like, listen, only look for the king. That is what is most important. Don't worry about the other things. Let's go get the king, and then this war will be over. Well, they see Jehoshaphat in the royal robes, and at first they think it's him. And then he starts, like, I guess, shouting out, and so they realize, oh, this isn't him. Well, at the same time, by chance, somebody shoots an arrow, and it winds up injuring Ahab, and then Ahab winds up dying at sunset. So it injured him. He didn't die right away. He drove away in his chariot, but he winds up dying by sunset. So that what happened actually did come. What Micaiah said did come true. So it says someone drew his bow at random and hit the king of Israel between the sections of his armor, and so it wound up. The blood from his wound ran into the floor of the chariot, and that evening he died. So then we're going to go down, and it says, as the sun was setting, a cry spread through the army, every man to his town, every man to his land. So again, this is that prophecy that like all the sheep are just going to kind of scatter and go back home. The king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried him there. They washed the chariot in a pool in Samaria where the prostitutes bathed, and the dogs licked up his blood as the word of the Lord declared. Moving on now, it says, next after that in verse 51, it says, Ahaziah, son of Ahab, then becomes king after Israel. It's in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat. So remember, Jehoshaphat is down. I know I say this over and over again, but Jehoshaphat is down in Judah. Ahab is up in Israel, and then Ahab's son becomes king for 2 years. It's in the 17th year in which Jehoshaphat is king in in Judah. Man, I know them in my brain. They just don't always come out really quickly out of my mouth. All right, and it says, he served and worshipped Baal and aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, just as his father had done. Another bad king in Israel. When Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, returned safely to his palace in Jerusalem, Jehu the seer, the son of Hanani, went out to meet him and said to the king. So we're going to start to see a little bit of punishment for Jehoshaphat. He says, should you help the wicked and love those who hate the Lord? Because of this, the wrath of the Lord is on you. There is, however, some good in you, for you have the land of the Asherah poles and have set your heart on seeking God. You have rid the land of Asherah poles. So God is mad that he helped Ahab. Now, it didn't turn out well for Ahab because the Lord never okayed it. So it didn't turn out well. But the Lord is mad. This guy is a follower of the Lord, and he didn't follow what God said through Micaiah. So there's going to be punishment for him, but he recognizes that he has done some really great things in the land. And then we're going to see, moving on here, to some of the other good things that he did. So he lives in Jerusalem. He went out again among the people from Beersheba to the hill country. He appoints judges. So it's like a repeat of what we saw Solomon do, right? And then what we saw Asa do, what we saw David do. It's like he's like repeating that cycle of the good kings. He appoints judges. He has the Levites worshiping. He takes down all the Asherim. He lifts and raises the temple. He goes back to a lot of the services and the worship practices. So he does all of these things. I got to put it on pause and put my dog back in. Anyway, sorry about that. And then he starts talking about his people in charge. So again, I feel like this is a lot of repetitive stuff. Amoriah, and repetitive in the kingdoms, not repetitive specifically with Jehoshaphat. But he says, Amariah, the chief priest, will be over you in any matter concerning the Lord. So this is a guy, he's one of the sons of Asaph, descendant of Asaph. And so he's where he's supposed to be, and he's in charge of things of the Lord. And then it says, Zebediah, son of Ishmael, the leader of the tribe of Judah, will be over any matter concerning the king. And then the Levites will serve as officials before you. And then he calls out to the people, act with courage, and may the Lord be with those who do well. Doing well is following the Lord. May the Lord be with you, those who do well. After this, there's going to be a war. And so the people who come against him are the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Meunites, which we don't really hear about them very often. So I thought that was a really interesting turn of events. We don't tend to hear about the Meunites. he go again, like I love that a lot of this repeats what the really good kings have done. He goes in and he praises the Lord. He assembles people and he praises the Lord. And he says to him, he's inquiring of the Lord, and he says to him, like, these are the guys that you told us not to go against back because of all the stuff in the wilderness. So you told us not to kind of like defeat their territory or do anything against them. But now they're coming against us. So what are we supposed to do? And so God answers in a really big way. He says, this isn't God, this is Jehoshaphat. He said, we do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. They are fully and wholly depending on the Lord. And the Lord really comes through in this one. It says, all the men of Judah with their wives and children and little ones stood there before the Lord. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Jahaziel, son of Zechariah, the son of Benaiah, the son of Jael, the son, and anyway, moving on. He says, listen, King Jehoshaphat and all who live in Judah and Jerusalem, this is what the Lord says. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army. The battle is not yours, but it's God's, which is a really good song. The battle belongs to you. I can see where he gets it from. So this is a really great song. So he's saying this is not yours. And this is literal in every sense of the word. So he sets all of this up. God sets all this thing up. He says, the battle isn't yours, it's mine. He says, you will not have to fight this battle. You're going to take up your positions. You're going to stand firm, and then God's going to do everything. Jehoshaphat bows down with his face to the ground, and all the people of Judah and Jerusalem fell down in worship before the Lord. This is a people who love the Lord. Then some Levites from the Kohathites and Korahites stood up and praised the Lord, the God of Israel, with a very loud voice. Early in the morning, they left for the desert of Tekoa. As they set out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, listen to me, Judah, people of Jerusalem. Have faith in the Lord your God, and you will be upheld. Have faith in his prophets, and you will be successful. After consulting the people, Jehoshaphat appointed men to sing to the Lord and praise him for the splendor of his holiness. So as they're getting ready to go out, they're singing. As they began to sing and praise, the Lord set ambushes against the men. So short version of what happens is he sets up all these ambushes, and all these men actually start attacking each other. And so by the time Jehoshaphat and his men get there, they're all dead and all over the ground. And so not only is the war already won, but then they plunder all of their stuff. And so they walk away even more successful than they thought they would have been. And this is how we end today. And it says, the fear of the Lord came on all the surrounding kingdoms when they heard how the Lord had fought against the enemies of Israel. And the kingdom of Jehoshaphat was at peace, for his God had given him rest on every side. That's how we end today. It's such a good note. It's such a great place to end, because it's not like the Lord did it because he loves his people. And I want to be very, very clear about that. But he also did it because they consulted him, and not like, I hate even using that word. They submitted wholeheartedly to them. The leader of their people, Jehoshaphat, gave everything to the Lord, and the Lord came through bigger than he could have even imagined. They didn't even have to fight this battle, right? The Lord did anything and everything for them, and that's how they ended. And that's how we end for today. Wrapped it all up. We will continue in this tomorrow, so we will see what happens with the next set of kings. And if this was a blessing to you guys, I want you to like it. I want you to share it. I want you to subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell for notifications. I put through a new video every day. If you haven't been with me and seen this, a new video every day, a new reading every day. So let's continue on. Keep reading in the meantime. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.